Hello and welcome to Talk of the Black Mirror, a brand new mini-series from Talk of the Townsends. I'm Benedict Townsend.
And I'm Hannah Townsend.
And this is really special for us, actually, because I don't know if you've been listening or watching for a long time now. Talking about the Black Mirror was the Black Mirror? I think it's just Black Mirror. Talking about Black Mirror was one of the first things we ever did, sort of as a podcast project, way back in the day, whenever the last series came out.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a full circle moment for us, this.
Yeah, it really is. That feels like... yeah, quite special.
Yeah, it's really nice. Now, we actually went to a little Black Mirror event a couple of days before the show came out, and we got a chance to see episode 1 and 6 early. But don't worry, we're not biased. We'll still be ripping them to shreds. No, we will say they were both very good, actually.
Yes, they were both very good. And the event was absolutely incredible. We got to hear a conversation with Charlie Brooker.
Yes, indeed.
Who is the writer of Black Mirror, which was super special.
He's a very funny guy.
He's really funny. He's a very quirky... I was going to say a very quirky young man, but he's an incredibly quirky gentleman. And actually the questions that were asked, there were some questions on a live stream and there were some people in the audience, were really strong questions, because sometimes it's a bit of a like, what's it like to write a show?
Yeah.
Is it tough to write different episodes? Blah, blah, blah. But these were like very good questions. At this event, Charlie Brooker actually spoke about San Junipero, which is a lot of people's favorite episode
People love that episode, yeah.
He said he thought that it resonated with people because it was like the first positive story that they told. I
think that's pretty much true, right? I mean, Black Mirror is by and large a pretty bit of a bummer of a show, as we'll discover in this episode. But I kind of love that about the show. So I think it was a nice twist of like, oh, this is kind of a wholesome story. It's a lovely episode, that.
Yeah, and I guess you always like, you're watching it like, oh no. It's a very lovely story and very beautifully shot. And he said that's why he thought it resonated with so many people.
I agree with what you said, by the way. Like, nothing sends a shiver down my spine than the sentence, we're going to take some questions from the audience. Yeah. Especially with media stuff, because you always get the people who are like, it's less of a question and more of a statement, like that kind of stuff. Or they're just like, they'll just kind of do a joke at the person. And then the person who's trapped there is just like, okay. But everyone had some really nice questions about like locations and stuff. So thank you to those people for not making it cringe.
Charlie Brooker actually spoke about the Sex Olympics.
I noticed you make a note of that.
Yeah. Because I was like, what is that?
Well, he said that it was a show from the 70s or 80s that apparently predicted reality TV or something.
Can I read a synopsis of it?
Yes, I can vaguely imagine what it might be about.
So it's actually a play, and it says, this frightening new play is set in the future in a world totally dominated and run by television. A world that is air-conditioned, fully automated, and full of gigantic TV screens where a child seeing a window for the first time would say, oh, look, a mini screen.
Wow.
It goes on to say the cameras are on them 24 hours a day. It's the live show, and it's soon top of the ratings. The final outcome is both tragic and terrifying.
Wow, a very Black Mirror. It's interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. It's so funny that for so many decades, like television was the big thing. They were like, television is rotting people's brains. You know, these days, if you get kids to sit down in front of the TV, it's like, this is good for them. That's good attention span. Do you remember the original Willy Wonka film? Like, one of the kids, his crime was glutton. One of the kids, she was too greedy. And then one of the kids just liked watching TV. And it's like, therefore, he should be murdered by Oompa Loompas for watching TV.
We'd both definitely be murdered. I found it funny. We spoke to someone the other day who said when she wants to kind of expand her brain, she watches a YouTube video versus TikTok.
Yeah, because it's longer form.
That feels like a break from social media, is actually watching YouTube videos.
Yeah. Although, shout out Scroll Deep, which is often over 10 minutes long on TikTok.
Goodness.
And that's why it's nutritional to watch.
But yeah, if I can find the Sex Olympics anywhere, I would love to watch it, because Charlie Brooker was saying that it predicted reality TV. It's something that came out in the 70s and actually predicted reality TV. So I'm going to try and look online and find if I can see anything about that, because I am very interested.
I think the only thing they got wrong back in the day is that, as they noted in that synopsis, is they were obsessed with screens being really big. The one thing they didn't predict is the screens being really small. Little screens, like on your wrist.
And do you know why it's called Black Mirror?
Yeah. Oh, God.
I kept making this joke last night because that is a fun fact. There's a couple of things that people love to say as fun facts that like you already know. The one that comes to mind most often is people saying about a plane being in jelly.
People love bringing that up.
People love to tell you that actually when you're flying, the plane it can't just drop out the sky. And it's like it's in jelly. And someone will start this story. And I'm always like, do you not think I've heard this?
I know. We should probably explain that, because some people are going to lose their minds if we don't explain it.
No, come on. Everyone's heard it.
If you've not heard of it, it's like...
No, we're doing them.
I know, but it's okay. Fine, we won't explain it. You can Google it. Can I know it's important to share culture with other people. Can I share some of my culture, bloke culture, with you? Because an important bloke thing is in the movie The Lord of the Rings. There's a scene where Aragorn kicks a helmet, right, in frustration, but it wasn't a prop helmet, it was an actual metal helmet, and he broke his toe or something, and in the film he kicks it and he screams, but the scream is real because he was in so much pain, and they left it in the movie. But that is like become a joke of how anytime anyone watches the movie, they have to point at the screen and go, that's actually a real scream. That's the kind of like plain jelly of The Lord of the Rings.
And it's the same thing with Black Mirror. People love, I mean, it is a fun fact. It's also super cool. The first time you hear it, you're like, I suppose it is a black mirror.
If you don't know what it is, it's because the mirror is haunted, and so it's turned black, like smoke.
Who is the fairest of them all?
Snow White.
Snow White. Oh.
Black mirror on the wall. Who's got the scariest phone of all? But we should delve into the first episode of the new Black Mirror, which is called Common People. And before we run through it, I want to say up top, one of my favorite Black Mirror episodes, I think, of all time.
Whoa.
And I think one of the absolute strongest ones of what I guess you could call the new era, like the Netflix era. You know, there was the sort of Channel 4 era, and then there was the much more high budget Netflix era. This, Charlie Brooker said, he was trying to go for a return to classic form. He was trying to do a lot more like season 1 style stuff. And this felt like that for me.
This absolutely felt like, also you keep calling it the Black Mirror. I guess it's because we usually do a talk of the Townsends, the White Lotus, the this, the
White Lotus, the Black Mirror.
It's not the.
No, it's not.
There's no the. What's that from?
No, it's lose the. It's cleaner from the Social Network because it's called the Facebook.
I would totally agree with that point. It definitely felt like going back to tech feeling very possible.
Yes.
It ties in. It's a bit like the Harry Potter thing of grounding it in the real world. This felt very grounded in the real world.
Yes.
With
the Harry Potter thing, is that?
I
the
thing with Harry Potter is I think that so many people could understand it, and people who weren't necessarily into like fantastical stuff is because like I know what a staircase is, so I can imagine a staircase moving.
Yes,
I know what a painting is, so I can imagine a person in a painting talking, as opposed to like, you know, things, the spaceships and whatever, where it's a little bit more kind of far-fetched or whatever.
Sure. I guess that's why that was such an accessible series.
That is why I think it was a success.
Yes. And it's sad that it was written by no one.
I'm sorry. I know do you know what? It's such a shame how often Harry Potter actually comes up.
That's the millennial in us.
Yeah, it really does. It comes up all the blooming time, and we hate speaking. Like I don't like speaking about it now. It feels sad.
Yeah.
It feels sad to me, genuinely.
It's genuinely sad that she has poisoned that well so much. Because there was so much joy there before she
ruined our childhoods.
Yeah, before she just went on Twitter too hard and completely brain poisoned herself. Anyway, speaking of people poisoning themselves using technology, back to Black Mirror. I think it had all the elements you want. It had genuine humor. It was really depressing. But it also had another element, which I will bring up when we get there, that I think I realized is key to Black Mirror. It had the magic element, but I will address that when we come to the plot. So let's go through it sort of chronologically. You have a couple played by Chris O'Dowd, who I love, and Rashida Jones, who I also love. I think you love them too.
Oh, I love both of them. And I mean, Parks and Rec is one of our... Parks and Recreation brought Benedict and I together.
It actually did.
It really did. There was our first one of our first meetings. We stayed up watching...
We had a meeting.
Get on your feet.
I said, hold my calls.
No, at university. I think we stayed up until like 6 a.m.
watching
Parks and Rec.
We've always bloody loved TV, haven't we?
No wonder we're here.
But yes, Rashida Jones, you beautiful tropical fish. And then Chris O'Dowd, famous from the IT Crowd, another show with a creator who lost his mind. But Chris O'Dowd for me is someone who I think is so talented and who has had a wonderful career, but he's one of those people where you're like, you should be like an A-lister. Like he's such a likable actor, but also has a real range, which he demonstrates in this episode that I've never really seen before. Like Chris O'Dowd angry is very believable. And I don't think I've ever seen him in that mode before. But they're just two common people.
Hey.
Her job is teacher who teaches bee. Every lesson she's just teaching about bees. You've heard of a PE teacher. She's a BEE teacher.
How do you get honey Chasing bees.
Do you notice that was lesson number 3 before she got to honey?
Yeah.
These kids are in school every day learning about bees.
So we found out that this was actually shot in Canada, and I loved the kind of, I mean, it looked a bit American-y as well.
Yeah, they were going for America.
For America. It was shot in Canada, but I love an American high school.
Yeah.
There's such there's so many films I grew up with that's like lockers and hallways that just has a certain magic to me that I'm sure if you go there every day, it absolutely doesn't have that magic.
Yes.
But I love being in an American high school or a junior school as a place to kind of spend time in.
Did you notice also when she was teaching about the bees, her first bee lesson was about those like robot bees, which I assume must come up in one of the later episodes, or maybe it's come up in a previous season and I've forgotten about it, but that felt very much like a put a pin in this kind of moment.
Something I loved about this episode is it was centered around a key date. I find it very satisfying to watch when we are going to a moment in time every year. There's something that like my brain particularly loves about revisiting and seeing where we are from one year to another.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's like one day.
Yes.
The classic example.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure we've spoken about this before, but I feel like in film and TV shows these days, they try and hide any sort of time passing. Back in the day, it would be like 4 years later on the screen, like hair that was down to there would then be like a short bob or like the pixie cut.
Yeah.
But these days, like you really have to look for it. They make you work. They're like, oh, okay, she's not with that guy anymore. You know, she's talking about like, oh, you know, when my brother passed, I'm like, her brother's dead?
Well, they love doing that thing in film and TV where what's it called, in medias res or whatever, where they start the story in the middle and they let you sort of figure out, or they deliberately have it a bit ambiguous. You're like, what's going on? And then they explain it. But they'll do it, you're right, with time jumps as well.
Yes.
Where it just suddenly one of them's alone and you're like, what's happened to the other one? And then like 10 minutes later, they'll be like, fine, we'll tell you, he died. But this episode, I think, was quite good at just being like, time has passed.
Yes.
This actually had on screen, I guess, is it become like uncool to put 1 year later on screen?
Do you think?
I guess. Or is it seen as cheap? Is it grander storytelling to be able to just let the audience figure out from context?
But this one was by showing us a calendar and saying our anniversary is coming up. I know what you're saying, and I think, yes, there probably is something in there where having the big text on screen saying 1 year later, like the audience should just know. They should just know he's upset. You know, that's why we don't need to do this to show that he's upset. They should know. And I guess it's probably the same thing.
There's that rule, show, don't tell, which I think is one of the most misunderstood rules ever. Because people use show, don't tell, side note, but people talk about show, don't tell in writing, but it's designed for theatre or films where you can show. In writing, you can't really show.
So you tell.
You tell everything, technically speaking. But yes, she is a teacher. His job is blue collar.
Welding.
Working man. He welds, he lifts. It's just working, very vague kind of just, you know, salt of the earth kind of guy. Where does he work? The work factory.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like boat stuff there, maybe. It doesn't matter. The point is these two, almost comically so, are meant to be normal, likable, ordinary people. And something I really like about this episode, which I think might be almost a first for Black Mirror, is they are a nice couple who cares about each other. And their love and their relationship is not the source of the problems. And they never waver from loving each other at any point. Even when they have disagreements, they really love each other. And all the way to the bitter end, their relationship is solid. And also, I think this episode is interesting because sometimes in Black Mirror, there's an element of them being punished. Like they get greedy by trying a new technology. She has to get this technology.
Yeah.
And they're punished anyway.
Yeah.
So they're actually kind of morally pure people who are just fucked.
Yeah.
Which again, I think I'm sure it's happened in Black Mirror once or twice, but a slight twist on the genre.
I can agree more with all of that. We root for them because they've not done anything wrong, but, you know, they're in this like impossible choice and also the choice, you know, it's like once they get to the goalposts moves.
Yes.
And then that feels so unfair. It all just feels so unfair.
They have this anniversary every year.
Yes. They go and they eat these burgers, which taste horrendous.
Yeah. And they stay at this sort of Alpine style lodge. And there's a sort of, it's not even a B plot, it's like an F plot, which is that they're vaguely trying for a baby.
Yes.
Which at first you're like, is that going to be relevant? But I think it's more just flavouring of like, they're just people trying to get through life.
Yeah, I mean, it does come back in some ways.
Sure.
And then Rashida has some sort of kind of stroke almost at work. She falls down and then the husband is given this ultimatum, basically. She's on life support.
She has, I think, a tumor on the brain.
Yeah.
She's basically going to die.
However, there's this one new kind of life-saving thing. He says up front, we don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they say that's not going to be a problem.
So the technology, it's called Rivermind. The technology is they're going to remove part of her brain. They're going to put tech in her brain. And they've made a backup of that part of her brain, and they're going to basically stream the information over like Wi-Fi into her brain. Now, the second this technology was mentioned, I thought that sounds like a terrible idea, but he has no choice.
Yeah.
It's that or let her die.
I'd get that tech in your brain.
Yeah. His acting, by the way, I thought was brilliant in the scene. With Tracy Ellis Ross, who is so brilliant as the salesperson. She's so funny. But there's that bit where she makes a joke where she goes, I had the procedure and the kids say I'm still as annoying as ever. And he goes, because he's like, he's so traumatized. He's not in the mood for humor.
Yeah.
But he's just like, it's just like so well acted. What did you think of Tracy Ellis Ross?
I thought she was absolutely phenomenal in this role. Also, she had so many different looks. She was really serving a look every time they went back. It definitely felt... I wonder if there was something where she looked different if we went back and watched it and they were almost amping up how she looked each time as the company grew. I wonder if she like looked smarter or looked...
That's interesting.
Do you know what I mean? I wonder if they did something, you know, the hair got higher on her head as they raised the prices of this subscription service. But I thought her delivery was spot on.
And really funny.
Really funny.
Really classic. I thought the humour was so spot on. Really good classic Charlie Brooker humour.
It was so good at turning up the dial as well, because I kind of believed her in that moment where she said, like, it's not going to be a lot of money. I wasn't actually sure what the plot line was going to be. I mean, you hear subscription and you think one thing, but she said, you know, we can work with not a lot of money, and you kind of think, oh, I guess they could.
And then so they you know, she's saved by this technology, but they struggle to afford it. Mm-hmm. At work, he sees an annoying coworker on a website called, I think, Dumb Dummies, where people basically will do anything, humiliate themselves to make money.
Yeah.
First time that showed up on screen, I thought that's either going to be a bit of set dressing or that's going to be a tease for a future episode. Turns out it did come back later.
You were very good as the plot line went on. You went, oh no, as he obviously came to use this website. Because I was like, what? And you were like, he's going to use the website. I was like, oh God. It really reminds me, I'm not going to name the channel, but there was definitely something like that going around when we were younger that still haunts me to this day.
Are you talking about one of those haunting websites that we all just looked at when we were 9?
Yeah.
I know the style you mean.
And it was literally just people hurting themselves on camera.
Yeah.
And when I tell you, I have never forgotten the things I saw on that website.
That's a real core millennial memory. That and being disappointed in J.K. Rowling is just like, you know, back on a much simpler and in many ways much more innocent internet of like 2005. You're like, I'm going to look at some stick figure animations. I'm going to go on google.com and see what the fun doodle is. I'm going to see the most traumatic thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That's just what the internet was like back then.
There's two things that happen. They try and go away.
Oh, yes.
And she faints and kind of goes dead almost because she's out of the Wi-Fi zone.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. So let's talk about that first. So they go back to Tracy Ellis Ross and they go, why did she collapse? I thought we were inside the zone. And she says, well, we're expanding the zone.
And we're upgrading the zone.
Upgrading and we're adding a new tier to the subscription. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be able to basically leave your town, you have to have the higher tier of subscription. The point I realized that this was an all-time Black Mirror episode is when they dropped the reveal that it was all a big satire on the subscription culture that we're all stuck in. Because to me, a key element of Black Mirror is that it has to satirize something in our existing tech world really well, right? I'm not saying it has to, but if it does, that makes it one of the all-time greats. You know, I like the episodes where they're like, oh, they're in space or whatever. But for me, if you're taking something that we all hate about technology and just taking it to the nth degree, like in this case, you have to have a subscription to stay alive. That is brilliant. And all the deliciously nasty stuff this episode does, where it keeps ramping up of like, well, now you have to pay more or you're going to have ads. Now you have to pay more or you can't leave your town. And of course, there is an irony to this being on Netflix.
I know exactly what I thought. As we were sat in the room, I was thinking a little too close to home, maybe.
Yeah. Although, the big picture thing is that, like, you know, Black Mirror's made fun of Netflix before. Netflix doesn't care because it makes money for
Yeah,
Netflix. They don't
sure.
care if you make fun of them. They all makes them money. But anytime I'm watching Black Mirror and you can feel Charlie Brooker's hate seeping into the script, anytime you can feel Charlie Brooker seething behind the typewriter, that is a classic episode for me. And you can tell how much he fucking hates subscriptions.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah, which we all do, you know. And it's,
Of course. And also you're watching it and you're thinking, God, yeah, I'm locked into, you know, you buy a Peloton bike, you're locked into, if one day you've spent $1,000 on a bike and they up the subscription to X amount, then essentially you've got a piece of kit that's worthless without being able to do the thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, you know, he's taken it to the nth degree by making it about life and death.
Of course.
But we're all kind of in this situation now, even with like streaming stuff, because it's like, well, the option is you have to pay more or you just have a worse experience. And also you can't really not be in streaming because everything's just on streaming now, unless you want to become like a Blu-ray guy. So I just thought that was brilliant. And I think all the stuff they did of continually adding new tiers and squeezing more money out of them. I mean, it's like...
I mean, even when they got to the baby and they said, having a baby, that would cost more. It's just like, what? Like, on what planet? It's exactly, it is a real... mirror reflection. It's like when I don't want to name the streaming service, but there's a streaming service that we had, and then it's got like another special tier to watch some specific movies, and you're like, wait, what? But we're already paying this, and it's like almost a completely different subscription service within the subscription service, and you get caught out on these things, and you think, I've got 18 different streaming services and I can't watch Boiling Point? Like, where is it?
Yeah, we had that the other day. I'm sure everyone's experienced this, where you go, hey, I actually know exactly what I want to watch.
Yes.
And it's a really well-known movie or TV show. And then you check the million subscription services and no one has it. And you just think, what is the point?
And also you're annoyed at yourself because you're like, it was here.
Yeah.
I remember when it was here and I didn't watch it. And now I can't watch it.
Classic example is when we decided we wanted to watch The Hangover, because both of us were like, we haven't seen The Hangover in 20 years. Does it hold up? And you could not watch it. The only option was to like buy it for like $20 off iTunes. I was like, on what planet can I not just watch The Hangover?
And also, how's it not come down in price? I know it's a classic. I know it's a great movie. But how's it not come down in price? This thing came out 15 years ago.
Yeah, so I love that because it is, you know, it's meant to be a mirror up to society, a haunted mirror. That's why it's a black mirror. It's meant to be a mirror up to society. And so I love that satirical, you know, people love misusing the word satire online. This is a prime example of satire. You are highlighting what you perceive to be a problem in society by exaggerating it and parodying it in a ridiculous way. That is the definition of satire, and Charlie Brooker is very good at it.
Another thing that makes this a classic Black Mirror episode for me is the humor.
Yeah.
I think the humor was so on point. It was genuinely funny, and it was so well delivered by every single character who had like a comedy or a comedic line.
Yeah. Rashida Jones also is perfect casting for someone who has to deliver ads because she has the smoothest voice ever. When she started doing ads, I'm like, she probably does ads in real life.
Yeah.
It sounded so funny. I mean, they are both wonderful. They are so believable as a couple.
100%.
I'm like, maybe they should get together.
Great chemistry.
Love. I felt genuine love between them. The way their conversations were scripted was very, very believable. They spoke to each other like real people. I like how they kind of joked with each other and gave each other shit and all that.
Watching this episode genuinely made me feel a bit sad. I think it was a good reflection of someone with a chronic illness, even though obviously that's not exactly what she had. But so many people live their lives with kind of like a chronic illness where some days they can feel okay and, you know, sleeping. And I thought that actually it was like tapping into those things that people out there live very difficult lives where, yeah, they're kind of bedbound like she was. And it made me feel quite sad in that way.
Yeah, it was a really good indictment of like the modern, especially American economic system where you have two people who are working really hard, who are doing worthwhile jobs. She's a teacher. He's doing like proper hands-on work, and they are paying for her treatment, and all their money and all their savings is going into her medical treatment. I mean, it's like, and that's sadly a situation that like so many Americans live in.
And it's just a miserable existence.
Yeah.
They're just working, all of his overtime shifts to basically, sometimes these days just to put food on the table in this case, to keep her alive.
Yeah.
But you think, I'm putting all this work in and what am I getting out?
It was a really good episode that he folded so many different current things into it. But as it goes on, she gets more and more basically unwell.
Yeah.
They keep adding more tiers.
Yeah.
They also introduce this idea of like, what are they called? Boosters?
Yes. Is that the top tier? It's like an app.
Well, the top tier is called Lux.
The top tier is...
And it's like $10,000 a month or something.
Yeah, but it means that you can just like give yourself pleasure, give yourself happiness. Yeah.
I like the reveal that Tracee Ellis Ross herself had that tier and was able to turn up her emotions and stuff. That's a nice drop.
That was a nice drop. I enjoyed that too.
So then obviously it really well written the way they build up to this. You know, they're like, we need more money. How am I going to get more money? How am I going to get more money? And then he's like, don't worry, I'll figure it out. And I thought, oh no.
Yeah.
And then you see him pick up his laptop and go into a room. And I turned to you and I went, oh no. And you went, what is it? And I went, he's going to do the website. And he does. He gets this quite horrible rabbit mask.
Yeah.
And he goes on Dumb Dummies.
And it, again, I guess there's so many things boiling up at this point. Like we've got her, the subscription service is boiling up. We've got him. He starts by drinking piss and then he's taking his own tooth out. You know, there's a lot of things that are like building.
Yeah.
And just slowly that dial is turning up of like what you're prepared to do, what he's prepared to do, what she needs to do to almost just live like a normal life.
And that Dumb Dummies thing is not really far-fetched at all. I mean, like, streaming culture is absolutely insane. I mean, people do basically sort of torture themselves on stream. I mean, there was a guy like a couple of months ago, I think I covered it on Scroll Deep, who his whole thing was that he was trying to stay awake for as long as possible on live stream. I mean, how is that really any different from like, you know, drinking piss on stream? You know, people do horrible stuff on stream to try and get strangers money. It's sad that people end up in a situation like that, but like, that's not a far-fetched future thing. We're already at the Dumb Dummies world. He starts doing horrible stuff. The people at work find out.
Yeah, there's a picture of him when he goes into work, and then he doesn't throw the guy under the bus or the truck.
Literally under the bus.
It's very Mean Girls coded, but he doesn't throw the guy under the truck, but he
punches that guy. Really satisfying. I like angry Chris O'Dowd. You felt the rage, and then that guy just gets like bisected by a truck or whatever.
Sure.
And in this bloody, you know, namby-pamby woke culture, apparently you can't nearly kill someone at work without getting fired anymore. So for some reason he loses his job.
That guy was just under the truck, like screaming. I was like, surely he'd be gone. Because it wasn't like...
He was cut in half.
It wasn't like a Toyota, like a small car. It was a big truck.
I got hit by a Toyota yesterday. I bounced off, kept walking. Those Toyotas are basically foam. So he loses his job. He has to go basically full-time on Dumb Dummies. She keeps sleeping more and more and more.
And it's just sad.
Oh, we forgot to mention, part of the reason why she has to sleep more is because they reveal that when she's sleeping, she's actually in sleep mode and they're basically using her brain to power their network.
Yeah.
And Tracee Ellis Ross is like, you know, think of it as giving back. And she's like, why do I have to give back? I'm already paying you.
Yes.
Which is, I think, again, how a lot of tech companies act right now. It's like the harvesting of data.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'm already paying for a subscription.
Yeah.
Why are you showing me ads? I'm already paying for a subscription. Why are you also harvesting my data? Like, there's already been an exchange. Why are you also taking from me?
Yeah.
Because, you know, apparently there's a thing, Spotify is now talking about putting ads in their premium tier.
What?
Yeah. Which is like, presumably to add a third tier where you don't have to have ads, or...
Spotify's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to advertise on because like the whole thing is like, you know, they sell it to you as like, advertise on Spotify. It's for absolute music lovers. And it's like, but wouldn't absolute music lovers be on a premium tier? Or, you know, if music is your thing, I'm not saying everyone can afford Spotify premium, but like if you are obsessed with music and you are going to choose one thing to spend money on, it might be a premium Spotify. So it's a really hard sell for them, I will say, to be like, we have absolute... Because, you know, on Spotify, if you're not on premium, you can't even choose what song you play.
No, it's a really annoying experience.
It's a really annoying experience. I've been there before. I've done that and I've bought the upgrade t-shirt. Because so it's a very difficult sell for Spotify. I wouldn't be surprised if they would move into an ad fund where you can still choose your music, because you're saying this is for music obsessed people. It's like, well, would they not, if they're music obsessed, would the majority who could not pay? Yes.
I think that's also a deliberate tactic that brands do, where they make the free tier basically as annoying as possible to use.
Spotify has owned that.
Yeah.
Spotify is the most annoying
They were
free.
ahead of the game. And listen, this show's going out on Spotify right now.
So the dials turned up and up and up, and they get to the point where, you know, we're back at like another anniversary or whatever, and it's just clear that
They're doomed.
they're doomed. I didn't see it ending the way it ended, in the way he ended her.
No.
I thought he might be able to turn up a little dial and her go peacefully.
No, this is Black Mirror.
Because when she said, do it when I'm not here,
Yes.
what did that mean?
It was when she was doing an ad, because she's not aware.
Oh, I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
I thought she was saying, do it when I'm not here. She was going to go out somewhere and he was going to turn a dial up and she was just going to drop down dead. So when he put a pillow over her face, I was like, that's not what she asked for.
Yes, I personally thought he was going to turn up her bliss dial or something to the point where she was basically tripping and then he'd kill her. There was one thing, we should note before we go to the very end, which is that part of the problem with this ad tier is that it starts ruining her job as a teacher.
Yeah.
And there's this one detail where there's this kid in her class who says, I can't afford new shoes. I've got hand-me-downs. And she does this lovely little speech at the beginning of the episode. And then later, she walks past the kid and gives the kid an advert for Nikes. And everyone in the screening we were at was like, oh! And that was the most devastating part of the episode.
That was the most devastating. This absolutely cute as anything little kid.
Every child in this episode, they were like, get me the cutest kid ever that you will feel the most sorry for. So sad.
That was a hard watch.
That was a hard moment. But then he kills her. He did say, not to be smug, he had a line where he got her a booster card for the last time. And she went, how did you afford this? And he goes, it's Dumb Dummies, but it's a private buyer, a special job. And in my head, I was like, he's going to kill himself on camera. And that's how he's got that money, which I think is what the implication of the ending is. For the listener at home, Hannah is shocked. Because at the very end, he goes into that room with a knife, doesn't he? And closes the door.
You think he was also going to kill himself?
Yeah. Why do you think he had that knife?
I guess I just thought he was going to hurt himself.
No, I think because she's dead at that point, he's got nothing to live for. I think he did a deal to kill himself on camera, and that's how he got that money.
For 15 minutes. His life was worth 15 minutes on that premium site.
Apparently. Doesn't that say something?
I'll be honest, I thought he was going to chop his bits off.
I mean, maybe first.
It makes sense though, because I also think TV shows, everyone loves a trope where a couple dies together.
Yeah, but also, because she's gone, what's he going to do with the money? Do you know what I mean? He could chop his bits off and make 50 quid, but what's he going to spend it on? You know what I mean? Just being sad with no bits? I think... I think he, started a career as a castrati. I think he, that's... So, I mean, a very bleak ending. We were at this screening and everyone was so awed by it. No one even clapped.
No one clapped. We clapped at the second one, but no one clapped. I mean, I think people in the room really enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but it was a bit, it's a bit harrowing.
Yeah. I think everyone really liked it, but no one even thought to clap because we were all just kind of stunned into silence.
Oh, God.
But I do think, that's the name of the game of Black Mirror. It's always very depressing, but I thought really excellent episode.
So can I tell you my favourite line?
Yes.
Where he sold the crib and he was like, good luck with the baby. I don't know why I tried to do it. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm not.
Good luck with the baby.
Please don't. Please. He said, good luck with the baby. And they were like, oh, we're not having a baby. And he was like, why do you want a crib? And he was like, we're shooting a music video. We're going to set it on fire. And the look on his face was so funny.
Because he also a little bit smiled of just yes, of course.
It's just devastating, isn't it? Great.
Again, I think dark humor, is really hard to get right. I think dark humor a lot of the time can just be punching down or can just be nasty for no reason. And I think Charlie Brooker is really good at doing dark, mean humor that is funny.
Yes.
And is mean, but he straddles the line correctly a lot of the time. And I think that takes real intelligence and real skill as a writer.
Yes, because I think it really takes you on a journey as you're watching it, right? We're in this very sad moment, but something cuts through that's genuinely funny that lifts you for a bit and it takes you you're still in it, but it's funny.
Yeah.
You can't not laugh.
And I think that's the key to good writing sometimes, of like, the reason the dark stuff works so well in Black Mirror is that he's also really good at writing the light stuff, and he's really good at writing the upbeat bits. There's ebbs and flows. You know, it's like good horror movies have humor and have like romance and stuff, because if it's just a never ending slog of misery, you actually kind of start laughing at it, or you tune out of it. You're just like, oh, you know, what is this?
Yes.
Whereas when you're taking on a ride.
Yeah, there needs to be different sort of peaks.
Yeah.
I think because the characters feel so well thought out and like genuine people a lot of the time, I think that you're bought into them so that the comedy and the humor works.
Definitely. I've just had a thought, which is, you know, he buys these bonus cards for her. And, you know, they on their anniversary, he activates it in her and he turns her joy up. And she's just like out of it. And he actually can't enjoy himself because she's basically like high. And I wonder if that, you know, in the same way that the whole thing's a commentary on like dealing with a sick loved one, I wonder if that's a commentary on dealing with a sick loved one who's on like medication.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh yeah, this medication's made her better, but like it's still not quite right.
Yes.
She's out of it. He can't really engage with her. It's still not fixing the issue.
No, I totally agree. Just because the person's physically there a lot of the time, you know, we see this in life. It is just a commentary on life. Like, you know, you have a person who's physically there, but if they're not the person that you knew, or it can be very difficult.
If they're not being themselves for whatever reason, it can be really hard. I mean,
100%. You see,
yeah. I mean, you know, it's something we all experience or probably will experience at some point. And that's one of the beauties of this little horror we call life. But yeah, I just thought, it was a really wonderful episode. I thought the technology was nicely embedded into a human story. You know, the next episode that we watched was episode 6, which you'll probably hear about, I guess, 6 weeks from now.
Yeah.
I also really enjoyed, but was definitely a very different budget range and a very different flavor. But I think this type of Black Mirror episode is my favorite, personally.
I would also agree. I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm so excited. I mean, we'll be back talking about episode 2 soon.
Yes.
But thank you so much for listening to the talk of the Black Mirror.
Talk of the Black Mirror. Talk of Black Mirror, I guess.
Actually, I don't think that even works.
Talking Black Mirror. I don't know. This talk of the construction is very loose, isn't it?
The problem is it was so strong with Talk of the Traitors.
Yeah. Oh, we hit it out the park with that one.
And unfortunately, nothing's ever lived up.
We need to start picking shows that begin with T. We should have done Tempting Fortune, just so we could have done Talk of Tempting Fortune. But
anyway, love you.
Bye.